China, how does everyone that's here watching, how are they going to actually take something from this, apply it to their job to become better at what they actually do, though?
Well, I think as we talk about the intersection of relationship building and social media, so here's the quick story of how I got involved with social media. Somebody we all, maybe not all, but many of us know and love, Lori Ruderman, came to a SHRM conference. I'd been on board as the Chief Operating Officer for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. She pretty much was astonished, number one, that I knew who she was, but I'd been reading her blog for about 6 months. And then really kind of hammered me until I sat down and she got me on Twitter. And I, made a lot of mistakes in the beginning, but mostly I listened and I asked a lot of questions. I wasn't opining about anything yet. I was following people, I was watching conversations, I was asking questions, and I was sort of getting the hang of it. And then I actually started responding and commenting on blogs, which created, more sort of connections and relationships. And so about a year into it, certainly part of what was happening was, the sort of the confounding of the masses that a SHRM executive would be involved with social media. So there was sort of surprise, involved, and I think that let people sort of take some risks to connect with me. But it really began about just asking questions and listening and dropping in on conversations, learning about what was happening outside of the SHRM world in the very rich, very robust social media conversations, which gave me so much data and helped me bring back to my organization issues to be resolved, what other thought leaders were thinking. We weren't the only thought leaders in the business, although we may have acted like it sometimes, but what other thought leaders were saying and were thinking. And I think by being open, by listening, by not telling, trying never to tell, but really engage in a relationship, created influence, created visibility, both in enhancing my personal brand and at the same time really burnishing the SHRM brand. So if somebody's not on Twitter or if somebody's not writing a blog yet and are scared, so start with a Facebook page, start reading blogs and commenting, and you'll be part of the conversation. You'll be drawn in, and the information flow and the rich relationships that you are able to create will absolutely help you.
As far as your brand in this world, let's talk about in your company, how you can be influential in your company, because that's what really matters, right? This is all fake. This is all not real. Twitter isn't real. Facebook isn't real. Social media, none of this is, let's get that.
Sarah. Don't go there.
Sarah.
I'm so Sarah Brand. None of this is real. It is social media. It is a perception. God,
but if you take all
really
the things that you've learned at the base of it,
so let's talk about how we actually do this in your real company. When you get back, who in here is a recruiter or HR person actually doing hiring? When you get back, how many of you meet with hiring managers on a very regular basis? Not talking about recruiting. How many of you have ever gone through and done a rotation and actually learned the jobs you're working for? How many of you have ever stepped out of HR and done something in your organization that has nothing to do with HR, has nothing to do with recruiting, just to really learn what your business does? You want to be influential in your business? You want to get that, Lord help me, seat at the table, people? Learn what your business does. Stop thinking like an HR person. Forget about the blogs, forget about everything that's going on out there. Learn your business better than anyone else, and you will become the most valuable person and the most influential person in that business.
Agreed.
That's it.
Very good.
Done. Question. There you go.
I would tell you that most of the people that I know in recruiting who are really world class have worked in some other way other than recruiting. So either they've been in operations and moved in, or as part of a recruiter or HR professional, they took the time to go out there and shadow or even do those jobs. And you see in great companies as well, where that kind of mix is taking place, influence increases. So I'm supporting that.
Eric?
I have a question as a participant here. I think there's a lot of conversation about influence being a burden. And I think at some point, none of you guys didn't, no one argues your influence. And I think at some point you become aware of the fact that you have it. And then you have to start thinking and you self-monitor and you start to think like you're channeling your thoughts and your energy as if you're an influencer, which then, it's a challenge, right? So I think how do you channel this in a way and stay authentic and stay pure to yourself, Gerry, instead of, turning this into, my business now is influencing. I think that is when you start to lose authenticity.
I think you lose it.
I think you do. And I think we have a new generation of influencer that is trying to monetize the influence. And I'm like, that's when I'm not looking to productize and monetize my influence, right? I don't think you should. And I think Gerry's different.
That's what leadership is. Leadership is all about influence. And if you're going to be a leader, you have to be comfortable with the role of being an influencer. And it's not, so it's, I was probably influential for a lot longer period of time than I sort of knew, in terms of being labeled an influencer. But as a leader, when I took my first management job and I had people reporting to me, I didn't think any differently and I didn't act any differently. I mean, I've always been sort of who I am. But when you take on the leadership mantle, you think and act like a leader, and your decisions have consequences, your language has consequences, your actions have consequences. And if you are inauthentic and behave in a way that doesn't match up with your stated values or your stated organizational values, guess what? You're not going to be a leader. And guess what?
Here, let me make an argument here. But while your leadership was in fact based on authority, you were in a role at SHRM. I will tell you that the moment that you put a note out that said, "I'm following you," I said, "Holy shit." The head of, SHRM has found Twitter. So you were COO at the time, and I'm going, well, I think maybe we can even make a left turn here. And I had a little more optimism in terms of what was being listened to out there. Not just me, but a lot of the different folks out there who in staffing never had a real clear voice in the Society for Human Resource Management. So my point is, you influenced me to think much more optimistically, not just because you were in an authoritarian role, but because you also spent the time to engage and to listen, and were demonstrating that in active ways.
And Sarah, I know you're tired of the social media thing, but for me as a business leader, that's the beauty of social media, right? Is that I could engage and I could listen far outside, sort of my own captive community, and I could get to my customers and my potential customers in a way that I never could have before. And
I think you influence hiring managers in the way you listen to them. You influence the candidate experience in the way that you listen to them. So fundamentally, it all ties in.
It does. And I think when we envisioned this panel, one of the risks was, how do you ask people to talk about their own influence without opening them up to being labeled narcissists? And I think this group did a fantastic job at
didn't even wear my hat,
that.
So.
You didn't even wear your hat, so you're out of brand. I love this. He's out of his own brand. Big round of applause here on this.
Thank you.
Influence and leadership. All right.